this is actually some pretty important news to Tesla stock investors, especially to newer ones, so that you get an understanding of just how innovative Tesla really is. Oh, by the way, man, these are all scrapped Model Y rear castings. What? Why is it a good thing to see scrapped castings? It is because Tesla is probably trying something new here. See these gaps? We do not see these gaps in current Tesla's Gigacastings. And even a Tesla bear would understand that cutting out some material would make the vehicle weigh less, which would increase the vehicle's range, for example, reduce the cost to make the vehicle, and in some cases, if done correctly, it can improve the crumple zone. I don't really think this will help with the crumble zone, but I think this will reduce the costs that Tesla will need to spend on the Model Y. Tesla just needs to make sure that the structural integrity of the vehicle remains intact. But Tesla has access to some of the best engineers in the world that made the biggest rocket ever made that can actually fly. So yeah, I think Tesla can figure this little gigacasting thing out as well. The Biden administration is discussing raising tariffs on some Chinese goods, including electric vehicles, which would be good for Tesla in an attempt to bolster the US clean energy industry against cheaper Chinese exports. But the import fee for electric vehicles from China is already at 27.5%. So you don't see any of them imported anyway. However, I think everyone is missing the point here. The US is not afraid of Chinese-made vehicles being imported into the US because the tariffs are so high, it's not gonna happen. But the US does not like China investing into Mexico and then importing these vehicles from Mexico to the US. The US has stated that it is not trying to block investments from China funneling into Mexico, but rather work toward applying trade rules between the two countries, meaning you are not really going to import these vehicles from Mexico to the US, even though they are not made in China. There are multiple companies that are trying to build factories in Mexico, including BYD, but they should be very careful because if they are thinking that they are going to benefit from that $7,500 subsidy for each EV sold, they may think again. I think there's a good chance that these subsidies would somehow be removed for companies owned by Chinese corporations. And if not, I am pretty sure that the US will somehow still make it more difficult for Chinese companies to operate. If you use FSD often or autopilot, you'll probably found yourself in a pickle a few times when it is not raining, but the windshield wipers are doing this. It's a good feature because it keeps you awake. Because these windshield wipers really do make a lot of noise when they go like this. But the good news is Tesla now finally lets you turn off auto wipers when FSD or autopilot is engaged on the Model 3 or Y. Only those that own a Tesla and use autopilot and live in a place where it rains a lot like Vancouver can appreciate how important and life-saving this new feature is. I do have to confess that a few times I was just like, okay, I'm not using autopilot because it's raining and the windshield wipers just cannot find the right speed for the amount of rain that there is right now. From my personal experience though, usually it's not a problem, but a few times it is a major problem. Not often though for me. The most annoying part about this is when I have passengers and the car does that and I'm like, this is a bit embarrassing. Let me just turn this whole thing off. It makes me look like a driver that's not competent. But no more.